Right, so this morning, continuing our series, A Better Way, and we're talking about being distracted. So I don't know if I was distracted when this happened or I was just my usual clumsy self, because I am very, very clumsy. But I am going to share with you one of the many embarrassing stories of clumsiness that I have done in my life so far. So a few years ago, me and the girls worked in an office in Leeds, and we went and did a self-defense class. And the self-defense class was led by this guy who you would not approach under any circumstances on a dark street, because he had a bald head, he had a scar across his face, he looked as mean as anything. Very, very kind of scary, intimidating guy. So we got put through our paces, this self-defense class, and, you know, fighting off these would-be assailants and all the rest of it. And we got to the end of the class, and there was just one final thing to do, which was just, we were in partners anyway, so I was there with my friend Jo, and we just had to grab the end of a mat each and just simply throw it onto the pile of mats. That's quite simple, isn't it? Anyway, so there I am. Jo's one end, I'm the other end. We swing the mat onto the pile, and the next thing I know is I can see scary instructor guy, Scarface man here, going, "Is she all right? Is she all right?" And apparently, when I threw the mat, I just kept on going. Thankfully, there were some double doors and not a wall, otherwise it might not have ended well. But I carried on going through these double doors. So I threw my mat, and then I carried on travelling. And apparently, there was this little pair of trainers in this pair of legs sticking out of this door, and this man thinking, "Oh my goodness, I've just killed somebody at self-defense class. What am I going to do?" So, yes, being distracted, or I don't know what was going on there, but you'll hear many more embarrassing stories from me over the years. I've got plenty. I tell you, I've got a real selection. Distracted, being distracted. Our series today on A Better Way. And we've talked about in various forms. Sometimes in life, it feels like nothing's really working out how it should. Even though we're doing the things that we should be doing, even though we're doing the right things, we're checking all the right boxes, but things stay the same. And how do we find this life that we're looking for? How do we find this life that we're longing for? What is a better way? And so this morning, I'm looking at being distracted, or rather not being distracted, and living the kind of life where we are not distracted away from God and the purposes of God. And my verses this morning is Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2, which, there we are, up on the screen. "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let's throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." So here's the context of these verses. Here's why the writer to the Hebrews is saying what he's saying at this point. He's obviously written chapter 11 before he wrote chapter 12. I know, 5 years of Bible studies taught me that much. And he described in chapter 11, it's a very famous passage, how to have faith in God. And it gives you loads of great examples of people in the Bible who've had faith in God, and it's made a massive difference in their lives, in the lives of people around them, and in their nation. And so this is our great cloud of witnesses. These are the people that have gone before us. And the picture here is of like a sports stadium. If you imagine kind of the Olympics, the athletics stadium, everybody's seated round the outside and the running tracks in the middle. That's the kind of picture that we've got here. The great heroes of faith are sitting in that stadium, and they're watching us and they're cheering us on. And now we've come to faith in Jesus, life is like a race. Now, it's not a competitive race. It's not a race where we're trying to outdo the person next to us, the person sitting next to us in church, or the person across from us. It's not a competitive sporting event, but it's a journey with God. It's a journey with God that has a purpose to it. And it's a journey with God, if you've been at it any length of time, you'll know this, that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, because you've got to keep going. And sometimes it's easier than other times. In a race, you have to keep going. There's no option to stop. Ask any serious runner, and they'll tell you that race that they are preparing for is what's keeping them going. It's the motivating factor in their lives. It's what they train for. It's what makes them eat the right foods and stay hydrated. It's what their focus is on. It's what they're leading up to. And as Christians, we can identify with this mindset because our race of faith, so we've said yes to God, and now we're running this race, we're running this journey of purpose with God with us and with our end goal in mind, being with God. And our race of faith is what motivates us to live his way, to strengthen our minds and our spirits through prayer as we connect to him, as we learn more about him, as we live for him, as we read his word, the Bible, and celebrating and connecting with him in worship and meeting with other believers in church. It's all about this race. This is what keeps us going. As a teenager, believe it or not, I was a keen runner, long distance, middle distance, and I ran races representing the school. And I remember my first cross-country race. And this is where you really regret that you live in England, because I'm sure a cross-country race in Australia would be an awful lot nicer than one in England, where it's like today, it's a bit grey, it's raining, there's loads of mud that you've just got to get through the mud. There's no option, you can't go round the mud, you just go straight through it. Splashes of mud, all up you, just grim and hard going. And it was cold and I was very tired. And at that moment, I was just glad that I had done that preparation. I was glad that I'd lived my life in a way that the thought of the race had kept me going and motivated me to train, motivated me to eat the right stuff and work on my mindset that would carry me through that tough race. Because it does get hard in a race. It can get hard. It does get hard. And you have to prepare yourself so that you can do what you need to do. And in a race, you have to make sure that you don't get distracted. So one school sports day, I was lining up. It was 800 meters. And I'm lining up and I'm all ready and I'm all prepared. And and it was the one, now this was secondary school, so nobody panics. Tim was a very long, distant future memory. We're okay. This was the moment on the starting line that this guy that I had this major crush on decided to actually speak to me for the first time and shouted some words of encouragement, which totally distracted me. So I spent 750 meters of an 800-meter race thinking, he's just spoken to me. Was he speaking to me? What does he think? Do I look all right in my PE kit? How's my hair? Nothing to do with the race. I was totally distracted. And as a runner in a race, you can't be distracted. So this morning, we're going to take a bit of a look at what can distract us in our race of faith. If we are doing life in purpose and doing this journey with God and wanting to stay on track with him, we cannot get distracted. Hebrews 12 talks about two different distractions. It talks about, I'll read it to you again. Therefore, we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. Let us throw off everything that hinders, distraction number 1, and the sin that so easily entangles, distraction number 2. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. So the first distraction to look at this morning is the things that hinder us. Now, first, please notice that the things that hinder us are different from the sin that so easily entangles. And actually, the things that hinder us can sometimes be perfectly good things, perfectly logical things, perfectly reasonable things that everybody in life has. We're all busy, aren't we? Life, kids, work, hobbies, kids' after-school activities. We've just got out of that thing now where every day it's something different that they're going to. They're more accomplished in several sports than anybody else ever is, sword fighting and fencing and archery and all the rest of it. It's keeping fit, it's looking after elderly parents, it's meeting up with friends. It's what we all do and it fills our time. And God knows that, and that is life. And I don't know if anybody else feels this, that since we've had kind of lockdowns and stuff, life feels busier than ever. Whether we're getting used to getting back up to speed or we've got more stuff in, I don't know. But life is always going to be busy. And I don't know about you, I've found in my own life, if I want to be focused on God and I want to be in touch with him, then I have to be really intentional about building in time with him. And building in time to be with other believers in church. And maybe I need to ask the question to all of us this morning, if it is getting busy and it is getting out of hand, do you need to sit down with your diary and schedule in time? You'd schedule in. I've got friends, if we don't sit down and say, right, when are we going to have this coffee? It doesn't happen. And sometimes that can happen in our prayer life, in our reading the Bible. Sometimes we have to be. It doesn't sound very kind of floaty and spiritual and fuzzy, but sometimes we have to be really practical and just say, right, I've got to just schedule this in my diary. When is a good time for me to spend time with God? When is a good time to pray? When is a good time to read my Bible? And write it in and treat it like an appointment. Because otherwise it doesn't happen and we get distracted and life carries on and we get to the end of the day and we can think, I haven't even thought about my Bible today. I haven't even said anything to God today. It can get like that if we don't schedule it in. Sometimes we have to make the choice between time with God and time on our phones, for example. I think part of what I'm going to do when we do our week of fasting is just fast my phone. It made me think the other day, I was getting ready to go out on, well, I wasn't, that was the problem. I was supposed to be going out on Friday night, and my friend Cheryl was going to pick me up, and I thought, I'm just going to sit for 5 minutes, just have a little scroll through Instagram. Now, you're welcome to follow me on Instagram. The last time I posted anything, I think Lucy was 2. But there we go. But I look at what everybody else is doing, so, And anyway, so I'm scrolling through, and there's, I went on the search facility, and there's a cute puppy, and there's a man that's lost 20 stone. And there's a guy who's like hiding in a cupboard to make his friend jump. And then there's another cute puppy. And then there's one of those like really cute squidgy babies with the squidgy cheeks, and they're doing all of that. And then there's like some kind of like thing where they're cutting sand, and it's all very therapeutic. And there's somebody that's baked something. And half an hour's gone by. I haven't achieved anything. I've appreciated some cute babies and puppies. And now Cheryl's coming in 5 minutes, and I've totally lost my time of getting ready, and I'm just running around. And phones can do that, can't they? It's quite scary, and it just made me think that we can sit down and we can kind of disappear into this black hole of time and brain drain and come up out of it and then think, but I don't have time to pray, and I don't have time to read my Bible, and I don't have time to read that book that I know will encourage me, and I don't have time to go to the prayer meeting, and I don't have time to go to church. But I've spent 3 hours looking at squidgy baby cheeks and puppies and men scaring each other and all of that on my phone. And so sometimes that's the biggest distraction that we can find, isn't it, in our lives, is our phones. And I'm challenged by that, and I think that's what I'm going to do during fasting. The other thing that came to mind in terms of distractions, there are lots of them and things that hinder us, is if you're going to run a race, you don't win a race by comparison. And this can be so easy, can't it? You don't see people lining up on the TV ready for a race, looking at the person next to them and thinking, well, I haven't trained like they have. I haven't looked like they have. I haven't got the kit or the coach or whatever. They don't compare themselves. And her name was Claire Kennedy, and when we were racing, she was like the pro athlete. She was only 11 years old. I think they'd started training her when she was about 4. She was like absolutely amazing, this girl, just the speed. I remember the first race I ever did, and and I'm trudging through all the mud, as I've said, and I look up, and she's over there. She's not anywhere near anybody else. She's just taken off and just amazing. And we were always taught, don't go too fast, don't go out of starting blocks and burn yourself out. It would be really easy to do that, and then you lose your strength and your pace, and it just throws the whole thing out. You won't succeed like that. She was on another level. She was just like miles ahead. I remember when we're doing those races, the way you do kind of, you go round the track several times, 1,500 meters. I'm on round the track twice. And I'm near to her, but that's because she's gone round 4 more times than me, and she's nearly finished, and I'm just on my catch-up. But that was her race, and I ran my race. And if I'd have compared myself to her and thought, well, she's so much fitter than me, she's so much faster than me, if I'd have run my race comparing myself to her, I wouldn't have even finished the race. And comparison can really rob us of our joy, of our sense of just self-esteem and confidence in God. And God doesn't want us to do it because everybody's got their race and we've got ours. And I got to the point with Claire Kennedy where she inspired me and she encouraged me. And I was glad because we knew she didn't even really have to run the race. We knew she was going to win it. It was just one of those. But I didn't compare myself anymore because I thought she's got her race and I've got my race. Sometimes in life, we can bog ourselves down. There's somebody in this room that the last time they saw me preach, I did this same illustration, and I'd just like to point out I do have other sermon illustrations. It's just how it's fallen. And it's great because this coat, actually, I should have stopped wearing this coat a long time before I did anyway, to be fair, because it's quite old and it's a little bit faded. But Hebrews talks about throwing off. And what's your coat this morning? What's the thing that you have to throw off this morning? Is it comparison? Is it insecurity? Is it doubt? Is it negativity? Is it scrolling through your phone and disappearing down the black hole? What is it this morning that you have to throw off? Is it unforgiveness? Is it things of the past? This coat is comfortable. I didn't want to get rid of it because I was used to it, because it kept me warm, it was familiar, it was secure. But it wasn't doing me any good because it's not a good look, is it, quite frankly? It's quite scruffy. It's quite faded. It was 20 quid from Tesco 6 years ago. It shouldn't have been my coat. But I kept it, and we do, don't we? What's your scraggy old coat this morning that God's saying to you, just take that thing off? It's not doing you any good. But it's comfortable, Lord. I'm used to it. This is how I am. I am negative. I do get upset when people say things and I can't let it go. What is it this morning? And, you know, there are things that people in here have experienced. There are people watching at home this morning have experienced. I don't know what they are, and I haven't experienced them. Equally, there are things I've experienced that you haven't experienced. We all have really tough stuff, and I'm not saying, you know, I'm not trying to make light of anything. But because I care and because God cares even more, the things that aren't doing us any good, we need to throw them off. This morning now, just take a moment and just think to yourself, what is my scraggy old coat? What am I wearing that doesn't suit me anymore? Maybe even if it was just past success or something that went well in the past. But then that's done and you've got to move on from that. It could be many, many things and only you know. But it can hinder you. It can become part of you. You know, when I finally went to M&S and I bought my new coat, it was quite a change because it didn't feel like this one. My life outdoors felt quite different because I'd taken this one off. But God is saying to us this morning, what is that thing, good or bad? What is that thing that is hindering you that you have to take off? And actually, do you know, it's not that difficult. If you ask him to help you, it's not that difficult to take it off. But actually, look how much freer I feel now. Look how much smarter I look now as well. You can just take it off and it's gone. This is the amazing thing about God, and this still blows my mind, you know, 25 years after coming to faith, that actually he can do miracles in our lives. And we can carry things for years and years and years that we were never meant to carry. And he wants to come and he wants to help us take them off. Now, you know, sometimes it might be harder than just whipping it off. Maybe you need to talk to somebody. I get all of that. You know, I'm a good person to talk to. People on the team are really, really good people to talk to. But it can go. You can be shot of it in God. And so, as we respond to God in a few minutes, that's something maybe just to do a bit of business with God and just say, God, this is my scruffy old coat. And I'm just telling you this morning, I want to take it off. Whatever that process looks like, it might be a little bit longer than I would like it to be or whatever, but I'm taking it off, made that decision, and I'm moving forward. So please, if you don't remember anything else, remember the scruffy old coat and the fact that God can help you and wants you to get rid of what hinders you. Whether it's comparison, whatever else it is, you can get rid of what hinders you because God helps us. So, distraction 1. Let us throw off everything that hinders. Let's get rid of our scruffy old £20 Tesco coats that we've been wearing far too long and just need to go. Distraction 2. I get some really good subjects. I really do when I get to preach. I don't just get to preach on joy or, lovely things. The sin that so easily entangles. Well, it does. It does. It can get you in a knot. It can make life very, very difficult. And let's be honest with ourselves. Sin is a Bible word. Sin is an old-fashioned sounding word that basically means doing things against God's way, whether that's thinking it, whether it's saying it, whether it's doing it. It's just not going the way, not living our lives the way that God wants us to live. You show me a person that says they never sin, and I'll show you a person that has a sin of lying, actually, that's not being honest with themselves, because we all do, don't we? In various ways, in various forms, we all mess up. But the problem with sin is that it hurts us, hurts the people around us, and it hurts our relationship with God. And it can so easily entangle. I'm sure a lot of us can think of examples in here where you could tell a little white lie and it just snowballs because then that person says, oh, right, okay, and they take it on and then they believe it. And then you have to, I don't know. I didn't come to meet you for coffee because my car broke down. Actually, I couldn't be bothered. And then you get a text from your friend, I hope your car's okay. And it's like, oh, it's fine. I just lied to you. I'm really sorry. And it goes on and on, praying for your car. Do you want any money for your car? Well, yeah, but, it can entangle us. We start in one place and it can get bigger and bigger and bigger. It can snowball and it can hurt our relationship with each other and with God. Here's the easy answer. How do we deal with sin? We fix our eyes on Jesus. Hebrews 12, verse 13 says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus. And yes, that is how we deal with sin. But we need to kind of dig down a little bit more than that, don't we? If only it was that easy. If only I had a sinful thought and I just thought, I'm just fixing my eyes on Jesus and it's gone away now and it's never coming back. Wonderful. This is easy. I wish it was like that. We can ask God to help us in our struggles, and he will. But we also need to take responsibility ourselves. And it's about knowing yourself. It's about knowing what you struggle with. And it's about being intentional about how to deal with that. Tomorrow morning, unfortunately, so I've had Christmas and I've had my birthday and my excuses now have officially run out. And I need to start being good and being healthy eating now. We need to start doing this. And so for me, one of the things I'm going to be doing is I will not go to Sainsbury's anymore. Because when I go, the irony of it, when I go to Sainsbury's to buy milk and, healthy things and snacks and fruit, I often come away with all of those things and some chocolate, which really does not help the situation at all. But I know myself, I know what I struggle with, and I will not go there anymore now. I will have to send Tim, and Tim can go and withstand all the temptation and I won't have to. But sometimes you have to be very intentional and almost a little bit ruthless If you know a situation that you're going to be in is going to make you struggle, if you know a pattern of thought that you get into is going to make you struggle, sometimes we just have to be very strong with ourselves and just cut it off. And of course, you know, it is difficult, but God is with us. That's the good thing about it. God doesn't get us into, you know, his family, into his church. He doesn't bring us to faith and just say, right, I'll leave you on your own to deal with this by yourself. He helps us. But he helps us as we also help ourselves and take our own action. We can ask Jesus to help us in our struggles. And we, you know, as we build our relationship with him, that helps us too. And remember that we're all running this race together. And if you need to talk to somebody and you need to make yourself accountable to somebody, Sian laughs at me for going to Slimming World and paying £5 a week. She says she'll do it for, you know, $4.99, which I'll take you up on that. But it's about the accountability. It's about, you know, you stand there, you're lining up, you're thinking about all the things that you've eaten, and you're thinking, I'm going to stand on those scales in a minute. That's not going to help me, is it? It's about being accountable. And so hopefully when I'm walking into McDonald's and I'm looking at that burger, I'll think, no, I'm going to Slimming World on Thursday. I'm making myself accountable. That will help me. And that's how it works in situations where we struggle. Where if you've got somebody that you trust and you say, look, I'm really struggling with this thing, and they can just say to you, you know, how are you doing with it? Do we need to talk about it? Just making yourself accountable is a really, really good way to just help you through struggles and temptations. Wish me luck tomorrow morning. Sainsbury's will think I've died, I think. I wonder what's going on. So, being distracted, we throw off everything that hinders, and we throw off the sin that so easily entangles. We have to be intentional about it. And sometimes we have to make the decision. If, you know, I'm talking about this scabby old £20 Tesco coat in terms of things that hinder, but it is also the sin that entangles. In our struggle against sin, sometimes we have to be equally decisive and say, right, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to make the effort. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to think that way. I'm not going to say that way. I'm not going to do that way. I'm going to throw it off because I'm running my race for God. And as I finish here, I just want to encourage us. Why do we run our race? Because God has marked that race out for us. Why do we throw off the things that hinder? Why do we deal with the sin that so easily entangles? It's because God has got an amazing race for each one of us. And it is our own race. Like I say, Claire Kennedy went and did her thing at 100 miles an hour. I did my own little race through the mud and everything else at my own speed. Because we all have our own race. And the part that God calls you to play in your life, with church, with your friends, with your family, is unique and special to you. And as I close this morning, I just want to encourage you in that. Because sometimes we can think, you know, it's hard to throw off the things that hinder. It's hard to get rid of the sin that so easily entangles me. But you're doing it for an amazing purpose. Because you have your own race. You have the things that God has put you on this earth that only you can do. God has made us how we are in the positive way to play the part that we can play in life, with friends, with family, in church. Your contribution is amazing and it is unique. And in the body of Christ, in the church, we can't do without it. It's really, really key and it's really, really precious. And it's just good to be encouraged with that, isn't it? And I don't think we encourage each other enough sometimes. I got loads of lovely birthday messages this week and I thought that's really, really nice. And people said some really kind things. And I thought we should just say this stuff to each other anyway, whether it's our birthday or not. That, you know, we all have a part to play. We all have a purpose. You know, when you're not here, you're missed. The things that you bring, the way that you are, the blessing and encouragement that you are, is an amazing thing, and it is your race. And if we have a vision of the fact that God has got an amazing race for us and an amazing purpose for us, everywhere we go, everything that we do in your workplace, in your family, in your church, it makes throwing off the things that hinder. It makes getting rid of the sin that so easily entangles. It makes it so much easier. And it doesn't feel like a hardship, but it feels like the privilege that it is, because you're called for higher things. I was not called to have a £20 skanky Tesco coat. I was called to use my Christmas money on a Marks and Spencer's one in a different colour. We've got a purpose. Each of us have got a purpose. And you have to think about that in the struggles, in the things that hinder you, in the sin that so easily entangles. Let's not get distracted. Let's not be put off from what God wants us to do and the way that God wants us to live our lives, because we have a greater purpose. And let's encourage one another. Let's just remember, this is not, being a Christian is not a solo activity. It's not a solo sport. We're all in this together. And if we need help in throwing off things that hinders, if we need help in getting rid of the sin that so easily entangles, then let's talk to somebody that we trust. Let's talk to one of the team. And let's do what we need to do and deal with what we need to deal with, because we have an amazing race. We have an amazing race that God leads us to run for him and to encourage each other as we run that race. So as we respond to God now, let's just take a moment and just think about, what is your skanky old coat? What are the things? What are the things that hinder you? What are the things that entangle you? And what do you need to do some business with this morning with God as we worship? And as I say, if you want to talk to one of us after, that would be fantastic, and that you're more than welcome to do that.